top story this evening. It was a rocky start to the earnings season. Infosys has missed the mark in the fourth quarter. What's worse is that the company is pointing to further slowdown in the coming days. The Infosys board has announced a key change too. Ravi Venkatesh, who's currently an independent director, has been appointed as the co-chairman of the board. He's seen as someone close to Infosys founder N.R. Narayan Murthy. We caught up with Ravi Venkatesh and R Sesshasayee. Here's that exclusive conversation.
Well, I have with me the men of the moment, Mr. R Sesshasayee and Mr. Ravi Venkatesh, to take us through the developments in the board meeting and what lies ahead. So, Shesh, I'm going to come to you first. In terms of what lies ahead, Ravi has just joined in as a co-chairman. How will he complement you? What led to this decision, and what does this mean for Infosys board and the way forward?
Well, the last several months, the board has been of the view that we need to step up even further the engagement that we have with the company. We already have a phenomenal amount of engagement from each member of the board, and I can say with some degree of certainty that probably we are the only board where the board members work so hard, so intensely, and all with a view to support the management. And we are very proud of the fact that we have an extremely cohesive board, a hard-working board, and very cohesive relationship with the management. Given the fact that we have many challenges in the business, in the industry, and in the environment, we believe that it will be very important to improve or enhance our bandwidth to be able to cope with this. And therefore, the board has been of the view that let's get somebody else to share the load from Sesh. And in fact,
I like that you said load and not burden.
Yeah. No, it's not a burden. It's not a burden. And so, in fact, I've been asking for this also. And the choice is very natural. Ravi has been on the board almost as long as I have been. And Ravi was unanimous and a very appropriate choice to sit along with me as a co-pilot. So I'm happy that he's with us.
Okay. So, Ravi, what's your plan as you take on? As the co-chair, you will be, of course, as far as asserting in terms of corporate governance, board functions. Tell us, what do you see in terms of the value addition that can come onto the table now?
I think the thing that people need to realize that the main thing that's ahead of us is the industry transition that's happening.
Yes.
You know, the business model shifting, everything's up in the air, and Infi has to make this transformation that Vishal is driving. And that's a big agenda. So, my primary focus is on, aspects of that. Sesh and I have talked very candidly about, how we work together. We have an old and comfortable working relationship. And what we've decided is on some matters, I'll take the lead and he and others will support. On others, he'll continue to lead and drive, and I might accompany him. So it's not going to be some watertight compartment. So for instance, I've been leading the strategy and risk committee of the board for some years. So so I'll continue to focus with Vishal and the management on strategy and execution. He's been doing a lot of work with investor outreach and handling a whole bunch of governance matters, and it's natural that he would continue, but I might participate in that. So I think it's going to be working in this sort of a seamless partnership. Okay,
before I go back to Shesh, Ravi, we've seen models in the US, in India earlier, on co-chairman, co-CEO roles, which haven't really worked out. How will you streamline the decision making? How will you streamline the cohesiveness between the functions?
Well, first of all, I think co-CEO is a very different game than co-chair.
Absolutely.
So we are not management, we're not running the company, we're not making operating decisions on a daily basis. And so the risks of getting tangled up with each other, etc., just not there. So in our case, I think there is a fairly large agenda in terms of what we need to accomplish. And I think we have more and more clarity on which things the Sesh would like me to drive and lead. And so it's going to be...
I was also add that, in fact, the board works in a very cohesive manner, and there is a very high degree of consultation with each other. And in fact, there have been several occasions when, even without my asking, Kiran would jump into something and Ravi would jump into something, and we orchestrate our efforts because we spend so much time together discussing these issues. We know each other's mind. We come to a common conclusion, so we can act on that basis. There are no turf wars in this. I mean, you might say that in a co-CEO situation, you need to have a very high degree of clarity in terms of who finally takes the decision. But the board doesn't operate like that. The board operates on the basis of consensus. The board operates on the basis of unanimous viewpoint, which comes as a result of managing different perspectives and coming together as in one shape and form. And therefore, I don't think that these two are comparable. And as Ravi said, it's merely for adding on to the bandwidth that we will do it, and we will be very elastic in terms of how we fit with each other's role.
I want to say one thing, which is, of all the boards that I serve on, the Infi board is remarkably free of large egos. I think it's truly one of those very, very collaborative boards, and so I think it's going to be quite effortless.
Okay. Shesh, you've been very transparent from the press conference in Mumbai. You had outlined several points. How crucial have the discussions been with the founders over the last few months? There have been external consultations with the founders. What role did that play in bringing on Ravi as a co-chair?
Let me say this categorically, that Ravi's name did not come from the promoters. It would be very odd to have an introduction of Ravi to the board from somebody
but was there a recommendation?
There was no recommendation about Ravi. As I said very clearly, that this is because I wanted the bandwidth to be increased, and the board said that let's then get Ravi to take a part of your load, and so there we are together on this. So this should not at all be interpreted in some manner or, that this is to
I'm glad
in
you
response.
that.
But we're very glad if our investors are happy with the decision with the board, it certainly pleases us.
We're pretty thrilled about that.
Okay. Another slightly difficult question, Ravi. Will you play, and it'll be good if you clarify this point, will you play a peacemaker in the two?
Peacemaker?
Between the founders and the discussions between the founders and the management right now?
No, I don't see the necessity for a peacemaker role in that sense. But however, I live in Bangalore. Most of the promoters have been friends of long standing. We regularly and routinely run into each other. And yeah, I think that sort of friendly relationship will continue. But I don't see the need for a peacemaker, official peacemaker role.
Okay.
I would also add on to say that the peacemaking role arises only if there is a war.
Okay.
And I've consistently said there is no war.
Okay.
There are some intense statements made, there are passionate statements made about a position, about a viewpoint. And we have consistently said, and I've said this several times, that we are very responsible listeners to every viewpoint that comes from our investors, most certainly from the promoters. And we will act as an independent board to the best of our ability in the larger interest of shareholders, and therefore there is no battle on this at all. Okay. So unfortunately he will not have this role of a peacemaker because there is no war.
There is no such.
Okay, I'm very happy you clarified that. Last quick questions, a closing statement from the two of you. Ravi, there have been questions by the founders on corporate governance, on several parameters. I won't go into the details, we've touched upon them, but do you believe that there is a case right now to strengthen corporate governance, to expand the strategy? What is your sense on
I think the core issue in front of us is the transformation of the business model of the company. Okay. And that's what everybody needs to focus on. And our challenge as a board, and particularly Sesh and I as chair and co-chair, is to get that alignment between all the stakeholders. I really think we're missing what the real game is all about, and we need to get back to focusing on that.
Okay. Trish, closing statements as far as the road ahead is concerned. There have been some questions raised by Mr. Murthy on capitalism, on perhaps aligning salaries, creating a more aligned structure. There have been several areas which I won't go into, but Are you currently relooking any areas, any decisions to be able to contribute to further growth in the?
Well, I think one of the principal issues that have surfaced as a part of this the commentary on governance is the issue relating to leadership compensation, CEO, COO compensation.
Yes.
That's been the center stage, right? And as I've said earlier, perhaps we didn't communicate this adequately. We put out everything that is required for the purpose of arriving at a judgment, but we could have even communicated even more. If you take the issue relating to the CEO compensation, you would now realize that in fact Vishal has received this year a lower compensation than even last year. Yeah. And that must be said to the eternal credit of Vishal that he held himself responsible for a higher level of performance, an audacious target of performance, which he said that this is what he would like to be judged to. And in relation to that, if that performance did not come through for a variety of reasons, including external headwinds on which nobody has a control, and yet I think it is to be said to his credit that he believed that he should be judged on that basis, and you would see that this is exactly what has happened. Perhaps there was not enough understanding or confidence that when we do a rejigging of the compensation package to have higher variability linked to performance or higher stock options of the variability, perhaps the communication was not adequate to make this clear that this is truly meant to be driven like a performance-linked variable pay should be driven in any contemporary organization. And that's where I think the issue has
Okay. Any more changes to the board structure?
Well, we are looking for appropriate and competent people to be added on to the board, and we will certainly be, and we in course of time would be expanding the board.